Mark,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes. Wait just a second, let's see what's here.
Making this big entrance.
Yeah, I figured you'd have that one. All right. We sort of called the meeting to order already, sorry. I know, we haven't done anything since the second. We need a motion to approve an agenda. I did have one thing I wanted to add, and that was, I talked to you, Kevin, about those, painting the blue line.
Yep.
The blue lines and putting a handicap accessible spot in front of the elementary. Is that all we have for agenda?
Everything else I emailed you about previously
Okay.
has been added.
Do we have a motion to approve that?
So move.
Motion by Slade. A second.
Second.
By Cody. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Any conflict of interest disclosures?
No, the only other thing I guess I forgot about, I know you emailed on Friday, did you still wanna,
I think you answered most of it. I did have one question about, depending on how contracts go tonight, if the non-certified positions can be advertised in the paper somewhere, to
Sure.
so more people know about them.
Sure.
Did you wanna speak more than that, or that's good? Okay. Then no other public input?
No.
Then we need a motion to approve the following minutes of the special Board of Education meeting of April 8th, 2021. Minutes of the regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting of April 12th, 2021. Minutes of the special Board of Education meeting of April 16th, 2021. Minutes of the Corn Belt Cooperative Board of Advisors meetings on April 21st, 2021. We had a couple resignations. So we had a resignation of Josh Faulkner, and we'd like to thank him for his years of service. A resignation from Ms. Mitchell Johnson, and thank him for his year of service. And a resignation of Kurt Sage, and we'd like to thank him for his years of service. And then we have contracts for the following certified staff members, which I'm not gonna read all those. Conditions of employment for the following classified staff members, as listed there also. Financial reports and claims for May. Questions? If no questions, do we have anybody that would like to make a motion?
So move.
Motion by Slade. Second by Corey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Before you go, Shane, we're gonna jump ahead and we're gonna we've got a couple guys here from Daktronics that are here. I got a presentation for us, so the floor is yours, guys.
Alright,
No, I stole mine and then lost it. I stole yours and then lost it.
well, thank you for your time. So we're just gonna make this a quick presentation, kind of go over a little information that we presented earlier, to Kevin earlier, and Christina as well, so. Basically, looking at, talking about a scoreboard and video proposal from Daktronics. So what we'll cover is kind of some of the designs that we have run through. Talk a little bit about the academic value that it provides, as well as how to create a revenue stream for the school district that can be used to help pay for other things within the school district as well. So, but before we go into that, Daktronics, it's never right to assume, but I know a lot of people know Daktronics, but we're based up in Brookings, South Dakota, founded in 1968. Here's a little short video about Daktronics, so we'll play this real quick here.
They say you should always go back to your roots. Well, we never left. From a dream by two South Dakota professors in 1968 to keep talented graduates working in South Dakota, to more than 50 years later, supporting highly skilled American workers across 3 Midwest factories: Brookings, Sioux Falls, Redwood place is home. Daktronics designs, develops, and does detailed assembly right here in the United States using an advanced global parts network. And supports more than 2,000 proud American employees. Engineers, programmers, project managers, service technicians, skilled manufacturers, and more. They're your neighbors. The people that drive our business and keep your operation running are also the people that support our economy and call this place home. Reliable, secure products, all mastered right here in the heart of America. Our roots are strong here, and we're not going anywhere. Daktronics, proudly American since 1968.
So kind of a cool little video there. And this is Jerry, by the way.
Jerry's second guy there.
Just a little bit about Jerry and I. Jerry is with our sports marketing division. He's really responsible for helping school districts put together a marketing package utilizing our products to create some of the things I talked about, not only the academic side, but the revenue stream coming into schools. And then myself, I'm more of the equipment guy, so helping kind of schools understand, what needs you have in the district and how to kind of put together an equipment package to hit those needs. So we're just gonna walk through the designs there real quick. These are just some proposed designs. These aren't the final designs, so if you see something, we can obviously change it. One thing that we did notice, we did mean this to say Freeman up on top, so that's one thing we missed in our revision, but other than that, colors, any of it can be changed. So one of the things we talked about, it sounds like they're one of the scoreboard that's currently on the football field. It's an incandescent scoreboard, meaning it has incandescent light bulbs. Incandescent light bulb scoreboards haven't been produced for about 2 decades. So, and from a parts standpoint, pretty much you can't really get spare parts for anymore. So it really is time for an update. So this is kind of what we started talking a little bit about. It was a new football scoreboard at the football field. It's a little bigger than what's there now. It's about 25 foot wide, which is pretty standard anymore within high schools. And then it's also has a track function to it as well. So it's not just a football scoreboard, but it can also be used for track. In addition to that, we took a look at the gym as well. And we looked at adding some stat panels to the current scoreboards. So here you see your stat panels on the left and right here, showing your player call points.
The one thing I did want to add on there, from the marketing standpoint, you'll notice that there's some sponsors on the bottom, and there was also sponsored panels for the football as well. And so we'll kind of get into that a little bit too.
And then on the other end, we have, as you see, the scoreboard. We'd have to move it over here. It's currently over here with a little message board on top. And remove that message board and put the scoreboard over here. And this is a video board, which is something that's becoming more common within high schools for a couple of reasons, and we'll get into those reasons here in a little bit. But this video board, it's a pretty common size, about 7 foot by 12 foot. It's basically same type of image quality resolution like you'd see in your TV screen at home. Allows you to do pretty much whatever it is you want to do. It's not just sports related usage, but it's also non-sports, whether it's graduation, whether it's physical education. A lot of people, especially physical ed or PE, they'll put up their presentations, the video of how to do exercises, things like that. A lot of schools will use it for their assemblies and things like that. So it's more than just a scoreboard. It's really in what I would call an event type display. You can use it for whatever's going on in that space at that particular time. So talk a little bit about the curriculum and academics component. With our video board systems, we do have a curriculum. The curriculum is really designed to teach skill sets in areas such as graphic design, video production, sports marketing, things like that, things that, you know, you would see kids use and go on to, whether it's careers or use it in a four-year university setting, which we'll get to here in a second. Go on to the next one, Jerry. But with the curriculum, like I said, it really teaches, gives students that canvas. The video board is the canvas for those students to really sharpen those skill sets in graphic design and things like that. But one thing that we've seen is there's an advantage from the college side, and that's the same control system that these students are using in high schools is the same control system that they're using at universities like South Dakota State, University of South Dakota. And you can see some of the schools here. And what's happening is we're seeing that those students that are learning and getting these skill sets in the high school level, they're taking that onto the college level, helping those colleges run, you know, their big productions like, you know, the game on Saturday in Brookings. And in some cases, these kids are receiving scholarships to these universities. So it's really giving them opportunities to not only learn technology, but to also give them an opportunity to do something that's gonna help them later on in life. Like in college, or Jerry, if you go to the next step, as an actual career in life. So these are just some of the career opportunities that we see out there with this curriculum that we developed. Producers and directors, video editors, animators, you can see the list here. But most importantly, you can kind of see what some of these professions pay. It's some pretty good numbers there, as you can see. Go to the next one, Jerry. So Jerry's going to talk a little bit about the third thing. We talked about the design, we talked about the academic component, and probably one of the biggest parts when it comes to a video board is the sponsorships and how it can be used to not only pay for itself, but to bolster your school budget. So Jerry will talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and keep in mind that our marketing process does not cost the school anything. We're different than marketing companies that are out there. Our goal is to be able to sell Daktronics equipment. And so if we provide that as a service to you, and we do that schools around the country, and we've been very successful with that. We've had schools that have revenue, when we first start, maybe in that $10,000 to $15,000 range per year. When we get involved, and we've worked with, oh God, we've had 300 video displays, 800 scoreboards, brought in $75 million worth of advertising revenue since 2012. And basically we averaged over $40,000 per year from those same schools. And so we've done this for a while. We know this is something that can be done at schools the size of yours. We've done this size, we've done large schools, been medium-sized, small, the whole gamut. We've been successful doing those. We want happy sponsors. So we help create sponsorship creation, help support any sales. And when we're talking to sales, somebody's got to go to those businesses and say, hey, this is what you're going to be getting for with a video, with the static advertising at football, basketball, and making sure that we support you guys on that. I've done group sponsorship sales, like in a setting like this, where we invited a lot of advertisers, businesses to that place, and had them tell them why it's good for their business, and also why it's good for their students. Show the game day operation. We want to be able to do that. Sponsor contracts, game day strips, all the while providing with an annual revenue stream. We make sales prospectuses similar to this. This is what we just did at Sioux Valley, and that will be coming into place here this fall. Obviously, we want to show what we can do, then tell what they're going to get, each one of our sponsors. Now, Rapids, they did it in midst of COVID last year. They started out selling, I think it was March of last year. You know what happened March of last year? And they sold it basketball and football. But basically, we did the same thing for them as well. And when we look at that, they've got a net. Basically, we're looking at a 25-foot board outdoors and about a 6x10 or a 7x12 indoors. And we're gonna estimate a 10-year revenue generation of $400,000 to the school, to the Booster Club. So that's pretty, budgets are getting tighter and tighter. And so that's money that is well used within the community. Keep in mind that you keep all of your sponsorship money. Max, you keep control of the entire sponsorship program. We're just helping you along, or whoever's selling it. We're just providing the resources to be able to do it. No commission or revenue split with us at all. So our main thing is that if we do raise the money, we purchase electronics. It's as simple as that. So, and Lonnie was talking a little bit about all the other uses. And when you look at all the different pep rallies, classes, community activities, have a movie night, all those things can be used with that video board throughout the year. I mean, there's graduations. Graduation is coming up this weekend, right?
Yes.
That's something that we really like doing that because schools love that. Because they can have all the pictures of the students, baby pictures, and as they graduate, what they're doing, their bio, and then them walking across the stage. That's kind of nice. So, but there's so many other different avenues there too, pep rallies, movie nights. And if you guys have been listening to what the South Dakota High School Association we talk about, e-gaming could be coming around here in the next few years. So, what's that?
I said I might go back to school.
Yeah, exactly. But I did want to bring up, when we're talking about the revenue split, I just did put together pro forma, and I'm gonna, you have those, Lonnie? And Lonnie will hand these out. But I have it on the screen, on here. And if you remember Del Rapids, they bring in a 400,000 RTR. Anybody heard of RTR? Just across there? We actually did an indoor video there just this year, about the same time frame, with their new gymnasium. And they're raising $41,000 per year at those three small little towns. Bridgewater, we did that project about 3 years ago, and John was on the Booster Club. He sold a lot of stuff there. So this is projects that can be done in communities this size as well. But here, when we're looking at this, looking at total project price, football and basketball, everything that Lonnie talked to you about, $175,000, $35,000 per year to pay it back. If we need to pay it back over a course of 5 years, that's what this figure is here. So when we're looking at here, raising that, those 4 sponsors that we saw at, if you open up your booklets there at basketball or football, and you look on that page right there with the stage, there's 4 anchors. And that's what we're looking at here, 4 anchors at 5,000. So we're bringing in 20 grand over a course of a year. 5 founding partners at 2,500. That's on the opposite wall with the auxiliary display, where there isn't quite as much notice, but with stat panels, I know as a fan, I love watching that. I love looking at that. So there's a use for those. And then the premier partners, we can, on this sort of a video board, we can section it out on windows that a smaller, just digital only, partners can be on that screen running throughout the game. And so that's kind of a smaller at $1,000 per year. And keep in mind, these are just suggested. You don't have to do these, but if we do this at this point, and this is what we I always like to show because it actually shows, in year one, if you're paying the school back, you bring $5,500 into the school from year one, if you completed all these sponsors. Year six, though, is where things kind of get fun. $40,000 comes back into the school just after renewal of those. And so, after a 10-year period, $230,000 above what you paid for the equipment. So it really isn't a cost. What we found that it's not a cost for the schools, it is more of an investment for the schools because they know they're bringing more money back than what they paid for it. That make sense? So this is what a lot of schools around the country, around the region, I come from North Dakota down to Missouri, and we do a lot of these. I showed you all the schools that we've worked throughout since 2012. A lot of schools have been very happy, and they've had renewals after that initial 5 years. Our renewal rate is in that 78 to 80% renewal rate. So if we're able to bring in revenue, help the students in the educational part of it, we're also helping the athletes, fans. I mean, these are, it encompasses a whole lot of different areas in schools, in athletics and academics. So, I don't know, did you have any questions on that? We're just kind of going over that briefly, but that's kind of what we want. Lonnie, you have anything to add?
I guess I would just be interested in hearing, and we just kind of breezed through that pretty fast. But, any questions on whether it's the designs, the curriculum, the academic side, any of it, so there have been one or two questions somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
So you had on there, and maybe it's in here somewhere, or I didn't look at it, that was in the sheet, it's $175,000 to do.
Yeah.
Both football
Both football and basketball,
yeah,
yeah.
And then,
combined.
did you do a 5-year payment plan then? Would look like
It would either the school would front the money if you have that, or a leasing company.
Okay.
So what, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we
that's not through you, that's not through you.
That, no, it would be a separate from us.
Okay.
We generally see it about 50-50.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times schools, but yeah, we're gonna lease, and then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, we got money, we'll
Yeah.
just, the school will be the bank, as long as it comes back into it, so it kind of depends. There's different ways from a financial standpoint to go about it, but about 50-50, I would say, lease versus just an outright payment, so.
When they came in and talked with us the last time, we talked about probably just making a full payment up front. Based on where you are financially, would probably make the most sense instead of using a leasing company, and then you could figure out your advertising, marketing side of it after the fact, if you want to. But that quote I sent you earlier today for just the scoreboard stuff was right around 47.
For the football score.
For this,
yeah.
For just the football
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's those 4 anchor partners. If you did want to go with the entire marketing package, we would put something like this on there. So.
Can you talk a little bit, I know we talked briefly about it, timeline wise, as far as, you know, if they wanted to do that, when would be the best time to make a decision so we can get it in, when we needed to get it in?
Yeah, so for the football scoreboard, which I think is kind of the biggest need from a scoreboard standpoint, you know, we're sitting about 10 weeks out or so, 12 weeks out on football scoreboard, so, you know, be something that you'd wanna do something in the next month for sure. Make kind of a decision there, and then on the gym, that has kind of come to, as you've heard, there's been a lot of changes with supply lately. If you've heard of the GM and Ford, you know, they're shutting down factories, things like that. So fortunately, it's starting to affect Daktronics as well. And we're out to basketball season right now on not the scoreboards themselves, but on the video boards. So not that that's a big deal or anything like that, but it is a little bit longer just because of some of the supply challenges and different industries going on right now. But
How
Football
long?
scoreboard should be fine.
How long does a typical installation take? So if you're talking about, you know, if they decided they wanted to do a football scoreboard, track scoreboard, once you've got everything, how long does it typically take to get that in once you have everything?
Right. So, the sign company that, our subcontractor, they'd come out, remove the existing scoreboard. If you were to put it in the same spot, you don't have to remove, not go in the same spot, but, and then they would set the IVs. That usually takes, you know, a couple days. And then the actual hanging of the scoreboard itself, a day. There'd be some electrical work, of course, to bring some power to it, things like that, but I'd say a total, no more than a total of a week's time frame to install it.
Gym stuff, pretty comparable timeline there?
Yeah, I would say less than a week,
Yeah.
probably a couple days, if that.
Sure.
You don't have to worry about I-beams there.
Yeah.
Right.
What other questions?
Yeah. Do you like the look?
Yeah. You said you'd put Freeman on top there.
Yeah, and that's on me.
Or how hard is that to, like, is that like just letters that would be changed?
Yeah, that would be actually, wouldn't be all that difficult.
So these letters are actually, this is a aluminum channel right here, this truss,
Okay.
and these are Tex screws to that channel, so, you could remove them, put different ones on,
Yeah.
so it's not hard to change, so.
Just a matter of getting up there.
How about for track? Can a person use that in some way for track?
Yep. See right here, hundreds.
So the way that this is used for track, where it says down to go ball on a quarter, there's panels that actually slide in for track that say, lane, place, event, and heat is what it does. So, when the race is started, this is gonna count up, obviously. And then when the race is over, it'll actually scroll through the results. So, place 1, lane 5, you know, and their time. Place 2, lane 6, their time, and so forth. The nice thing about this system, there's two types of systems. Daktronics has its own system, it's a push button system, or let's say if you were to host like a district or a regional or something where the times would be for state qualification. There's a finish lake system, I think that the most people use, that can be connected right into this as well, so.
Would that be, is that what we have as far as, like, or would we, then you have to get another,
I'm pretty sure what we have,
do you know?
We have a stopper system timer, and this would be similar to that, that we would just have stoppers for lanes. He's talking about finish lanes, which is a fully automatic timing,
Yeah.
which that would be something totally different and more money.
Okay.
We're actually gonna pay somebody to come in and do that at our track on Thursday. We, the Corn Belt Conference, are going to pay for a fully automatic timing system to run our track on Thursday.
So with that, would they be able to hook into our scoreboard then, so that would?
Right, not the one we have now, but right.
Correct,
we
the
would
new
look
one.
into
Yeah.
it, Exactly.
Yeah.
And right, if we look to do that down the road with the finish links, then we're set.
Are you doing finish links in this Thursday? or-
This Thursday,
This
yeah.
Thursday?
Good question.
Yeah.
When it comes to finding the anchor partners, what's the process that you typically see the most success with?
Basically, what I've done, when I do that is, because I don't know the people down here as well as you guys do, is if I work with the AD, superintendent or whoever, and invite businesses to a central location, and we do a meeting, and we do a PowerPoint, and we show that it won't be exactly like this, obviously, but why it's good for the business. And so, we always look at hospitals, orthopedics, those things, financial institutions, if there's any car dealerships in the vicinity, internet providers, all those sorts of things, insurance, real estate agents, and invite the whole, everybody to a meeting. And then we put together that, and we'll see how it goes. The one nice thing about doing it that way is kind of a kickoff, and you find out, is the community supporting it? Okay, so the worst thing that could happen, they say no. And so you're not under any, there is no cost for us if we do that. We're not gonna say, well, you owe us for this. That isn't gonna happen. But we found that when we offer it to folks and you get people at that meeting, that generally people wanna be a part of it in some manner. So, and that tells us, that meeting tells us an awful lot. You may have to do some follow-up with some folks around, like I mentioned John from Bridgewater. He did a lot of follow-up. If you go to Bridgewater's, you go there on the auxiliary board, there's a lot of sponsors that were not designed for sponsors, because John went and got a whole lot of extra sponsors. So if you have somebody who's really wants to do that, I don't ever really say that's the best thing to do. I always think that it adds maybe a little bit of clutter for those sponsors. I like it when you can promise a sponsor this, and that's what they're gonna get. So, but that's how we would start, and then go from there and try to get all the sponsors to be able to pay for it over the course of that 5-year period. And the worst thing that they can tell us is no.
Is that how long a sponsorship is for 5 years?
Yeah, and then it's up to you guys, do we want to have a renewal? And that's, as I mentioned before, most of the schools that I work with have about a 78% renewal rate around the country. And so if we have 10 sponsors, generally, 7 or 8 of those, they're back on. And we always encourage you guys, the school, to do a sponsor appreciation, because that's a big thing. People like to be thanked for what they're doing. And we always see that there's the return is greater when we can do that. And when we do it, at least just once a year. Bring them, invite them to the gym, do a pregame ceremony or something, or halftime, whatever. But that's what we found has worked out well for that. People like being appreciated. They like to be able to see their name on the board and their name going on here as well. So, does that answer your question on that? But like I said, we're not taking any money from you guys. I mean, it's, all the money goes back to you guys, first of all, to pay for the equipment, obviously. And then anything up and above goes back to either the general fund or the athletics, activities, whatever you guys want to use it for. So, when we did Pier, we had those basically going for bus fuel, so they could travel so far. So, but
How do you justify the installation price? With shipping, it's about $19,000 for a 1-day install. Can you help me out with that a little bit?
I'll let Lonnie take that, he's on the quick side.
Yeah, I mean, that's, the installation side of it, you got someone in town that can do this work, we'd be
Yeah.
more than happy to work that way, so. But installation, that's actually $19,000, when you said that, I was kinda like, is that covering both? But no, we should be good there, but, that's actually not a bad price for install, but you think about the I-beams, the digging, the amount of days on site, that's, seems to be pretty average price from an installation standpoint, but like I said, that's just if you want Daktronics to do it. If you got contractors, somebody in town, a lot of times, you might have somebody in town that doesn't necessarily have the means to write a check to give their sponsorship or to give their donation, but they got the means of equipment, they got the means of time, they got the means of other things that they could provide. It's another way for somebody maybe to get involved in the project, so.
So with the I-beams and stuff we already have in place, would that be able to support that the new football scoreboard?
No,
No?
no. We'd have to go smaller. The current scoreboard is 18 foot, so we'd have to go smaller. Good question.
Aaron, back in a few weeks and see what.
Yep, let's have some conversations before we.
We're not gonna
move
make that
forward.
kind of decision tonight.
Thank you.
We just want to give you out the information.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Feel
Appreciate you
free to
stopping by.
let us know if there is questions. With Lonnie or I, or on the marketing side with me, Lonnie for the equipment, be able to answer any of that.
Good, perfect, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks for your time.
Yep.
Thank you, thanks for having us here.
We're gonna skip to Ryan, because he was gonna jump in, sorry. Sorry, we're doing it in wrong order. Okay, Ryan, then, the floor is yours then after that. To talk, Ryan's gonna talk about the lighting project that we had brought up and.
According to what I've gone through, I've got a number for you, but it's not a real solid number because there's a few discrepancies I have, with some counts. And I'm not saying I'm right, he's right, whatever. There might just be some lights put into different categories. I also have.
I'll say you're probably right, Ryan, if that makes you feel better.
I also have, some inspection fees that I thought maybe I overlooked, as far as openings per light, which there's a lot of lights. I talked with the inspector and it's basically $1 a light for the first 40 lights, and then it's 50 cents a light after that, and it has to be inspected.
All the lights have to be inspected.
That's a big cost too for the inspection, and I don't know if that's included in his. Basically don't have the amount of information I need to go apples to apples, you'd say that way. But I do have a number for you. The local suppliers put together something and, you're going to, against a big company to a local company. So it's a little bit different, but, I think we're somewhat competitive and, I can, you would ask, time wise. This summer, I get 2 guys and probably about 2.5 to 3 weeks in the summer, and then, Flyer Fridays and Saturdays I can come into, maybe multiple more weeks throughout the year. And then next summer I can give you the same for about 3 weeks. So, basically I'm looking, believe in here with all my chicken scratches, there was like, 7 weeks or something like that total to do everything. So, but yeah, I have the numbers, and then, there was another few things that I wanted to say to, emergency valves. I know some of the lights are on emergency backup. I don't see anything in there for that. That's obviously going to be another emergency battery powered ballast, which makes the light more expensive. So,
Do you have any emergency ballast options that don't beep when they're running low on battery?
I hope so.
You'd be my favorite person in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, that is annoying in there. I'd like to give you a suggestion too, and this is my professional suggestion. I would suggest you go with LED bulbs. You're gonna get a quicker payback with that. As far as these lights, the hallway lights kind of have a little bit older look to them. The lights out in the commons area are a nice looking light if you want to go with LED bulbs in there to save yourself some money. I mean, that's a good option. My suggestion is to do the hallways and the commons areas and probably the gym, since they meet. So, and then go from there. Thing that I've talked to with Larry too is they usually don't call me in to do just one ballast, because that's just kind of a waste. So they wait till there's a few out. So if you wanted to go to a classroom, I did get into the elementary a little bit, basically almost, except for 2 rooms. They're all set up about the same way. So about 12 lights in every room. There was 2 that had 9. But anyhow, let's say 2 lights go out in a room. Larry doesn't usually call until there's 2 up. When he calls, I come and replace them. So you could go with the option of, you wait till that classroom has some lights out, and then just replace the whole 12 in that classroom. And then that classroom's done. And then you go on to, eventually let everything done. Or you can do it all at once. Do that.
I guess my other question with that, Ryan, would be, these all have a ballast. If we're just replacing the bulbs themselves, we're still gonna have ballast issues in the future, correct? With these ballasts going out, or do the LEDs extend the life of the ballast in the unit too?
With the LED bulbs, Yeah, I actually go in there and bypass the ballast, I take it out.
So there's no more ballast
There's
issue.
no more ballast issues.
Okay.
So then you just wire it for that direct voltage and then just put the bulb in.
So something like this, if you were to switch to LED bulbs versus putting in an LED panel, what's the dollar difference between the two?
Let's see, probably find it there. The bulbs is definitely cheaper way to go. Let's see.
You don't need an exact number, right? If
Yeah.
it's a lot, then it's a lot, that's fine.
Well, and then some of these lights, like these are 2 bulb lights.
Right.
So some of them are 3 bulb lights. And, if you bypass that, your material wise, you're probably roughly $25 difference cheaper on that.
And are the bulbs just as energy efficient as the panels?
The bulbs are not quite as energy efficient, so you don't get quite the savings, but you're basically spending a lot less money up front. So,
As far as the quote from both Valley Electric and then the distributor in town that would be providing the lights, is that something you just want to email to us as far as how much that would be quote wise? Or did you need a little more time to get us that number?
I have a number.
Okay.
I can email it to anybody here and we can go that road if you want. Basically, like I said, it's kind of hard to stick to that number because I know there's some different ballasts out there, or there's some different emergency ballasts and stuff too. So I can give you a number, but it's gonna kind of range. So basically, I come up with, in my quote, I can probably do a light in a half hour. So I stick to that. I mean, that's the benefit of going local do is I will stick to what I'm telling you it's gonna take. And I've seen some of the lights that were on the list, were listed as 2 bulb lights, and they're actually 3 bulb lights. The library and the elementary was one of those. So there's some differences there.
Okay.
And I just don't wanna stick to the number, because it's gonna be different.
The bulbs in the panel, is the light essentially the same then? I mean,
Yep, lumen wise, you're right in there, I don't think you're gonna tell the difference. Lumen wise, actually, the bulbs might be just a tad brighter, but he did have an adjustment on his where you can make them brighter, so, you're gonna be right in the same ballpark of lumens. So, and I can get some better figures in that too, lumens wise, but, I don't know, is there any questions for me on that?
I don't think so. The only thing I think we talked, Kevin, before was, since it's over $100,000, if we do it all at once, we would have to, instead of bidding it out, right, we would then have to just call elementary project, high school project, right?
Yeah, keep your project separate.
We would have to just do it separately. We don't have to bid it out.
And what I have together for you, and I can the total, so I can split that up for you and handle that separately.
Perfect.
Okay. Questions, Ryan? All right, thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.
Now it's you, sorry. Chairman, did they give you one of these? Did you want? Okay.
So all our standardized testing is finished in the school district, or at my end for sure. The special needs room is a room that I started down at elementary when I became sped director. We have three kids that are from Freeman that are in the special needs room. We have a student that's from Marion that's in there, and we have another out-of-district placement that'll be starting this summer from Marion. So we'll have 2 out-of-district placements that will help offset the cost of that program.
Do we divide that cost up just amongst the 5? Like,
I don't know how the office divides that.
you don't know.
Usually it has to do with a percentage, as far as how many kids are in the room, how many staff are in the room, and then, percentage.
So we got 5 kids there. I guess I don't know from Morgan and Gerken what actually is the cap, but with those high need kids, I'm gonna guess we're getting close to the cap in that room, but I would think we, depending on the needs of a kid, we probably could get one more in there.
And then as far as cap, like under Morgan, or that would be adding another para, and then you could add another one, or no?
It depends on the need of the kid. Unlike last year when we took that out of district placement from Dayville, that was a train wreck, but
Right.
we're doing a little careful job at vetting our students this time. The colony next year, Cheddar Colony's gonna have 15 students in kindergarten, Wolf Creek's gonna have 10 students in kindergarten, so for the Freeman School District, next fall, we'll have 50 kindergartners between the 2 schools. Rally Day, the Cheddar is gonna be an issue because we're in a tiny little trailer house out there, and supposedly we helped, Kevin did some paperwork, helped them get a federal FEMA grant from the flood, and I don't think they wanted to follow the federal government rules, so I think they lost it, so now I think we're getting another trailer house, is my understanding. If you've been out at Cheddar School, you're literally in the one room you can't walk in, the kids are stacked on top of each other. Rally Day for the elementary is gonna be this Friday, the 14th. Hopefully weather permitting. The weather looked good earlier last week, and now they're starting to call rain for the end of the week. Elementary will have their 4th quarter AR party on Monday the 13th, and then we're gonna have our AR pizza party on Tuesday the 17th. The kids' last day is the 18th, and then the staff work day is on May 19th. And then the last one was, this is probably one of the questions I spent the most time on, and that was a question from Slade. So, Slade last month was asking about, test scores from Crete, Common Core, time to compare them, and what I found out is there are no pre-Common Core test scores listed on the state website anymore. But here's what I did, just to give you a quick history. I'll do this fast, I'm not gonna do this the Don Hotchkiss way, I'll do it fast. No Child Left Behind was from George Bush. He adopted, in the No Child Left Behind was where the Common Core came from. 41 states adopted the Common Core, and the reasoning behind adopting the Common Core, the thought was, if you have a 3rd grader in Texas that transfers to Freeman and comes into our 3rd grade with the Common Core standards, they should be in the same spot with similar curriculum. Before, when we get out of district placements, we get kids from out of state that would be a lot of times behind our kids, so that it was, in theory, was a good theory. The fall of 2010, South Dakota adopted them, and then I believe in 2011, 2012, we probably spent all of our staff development for 2 years with our teachers implementing the Common Core standards. The state held us accountable, so we were held accountable to the state of South Dakota that we were teaching the Common Core. So in Freeman, we purchased a plan book, which is just it's a teacher lesson plan deal that has the Common Core standards listed, so when they do their lesson plan, it cites the standard, drops the standard, so then when the state comes in, we can handle teacher lesson plans and go, we're teaching Common Core. In 2015, South Dakota switched to the Smarter Balance, and the Smarter Balance is, so your question before was, why, I think what I took from you is, why don't we go back to textbooks that are pre-Common Core? The problem is, our standardized tests that we are obligated to perform at the state are all based on Common Core. So if we, in theory, went back to pre-Common Core, our kids wouldn't be prepared to take the test. Now, this is something that you would like, Slade. In 2018, they went away from Common Core standards, and they call them South Dakota State Standards, is what they call them. But when you look at those standards, about 75% of the South Dakota standards are basically copied off of the Common Core standards. So they're still a Common Core, even though we call it something different. And I spent time all over the state website. The latest they go back is 2014 to look at test scores. So I was unable to find anything pre-Common Core. So I don't know if that answered your question. I spent a lot of time digging.
I just wanna know, is this better preparing students? Is it the same? Is it worse? I mean, I have no problem instituting that and keeping with it if it's successful. But when they don't show anything to show apples to oranges, you can't know if it's successful or not.
I can just tell you that we're obligated by South Dakota to teach it
Right.
and test them.
Yeah. I'm not saying you should change it, I was curious as to why we're doing that.
Any other questions? One interesting side note, we have a hen mallard that decided to nest on our elementary playground, which I would think would have to be one of the worst places for a duck to decide to nest. She has quite a few eggs out there, and I know she does not like recess time. But I kinda hope she eat her eggs half before the kids leave, because kids are pretty interested in that nest out there.
I did have one question. I had some people asking about the high schools doesn't have to have the masks in the hallway, and how's the elementary? Is there things going on that we could still need them, or can we maybe go without that as well?
You were asking about going green. I don't have any authority to change colors on the COVID plan, so I guess I would defer to Mr. Coons. At elementary, the only time the kids are in masks is when they're up and moving. That's basically, our kids put the mask on when they're up and moving. So typically, most of the time it's in the hallway and stuff is when they have the mask on.
We didn't go away from it on the high school side because things were getting better. We went away from it because we couldn't get anybody to actually follow the rule anyway. Kids would prefer to actually go home, which then just actually created more work for the teachers and all that stuff. So that's why we got rid of it then. So, I mean, I basically told Shane that I will support whatever he wants to do at that end of the building, so. Because kids have their established routines and all that stuff down there, we figured there's basically 6 days of school left. It didn't make any sense to start up, throwing everything up in the air and do something different, so. At least that was the conversation we had today, so.
I kind of understand the 6 days left as far as like next year, like,
I would guess most of this
back
is
to
probably gonna go
normal,
next year.
we're hoping for, okay. I mean, if we can plan on that, I think that would.
I mean, I got vaccinated, hoping that we're gonna go back to whatever the new normal is, which I hope is far different than what we saw this year.
Yeah, well, I also got vaccinated, and I'm pretty sure, I think COVID would have treated me maybe better. I thought I was gonna die twice when I took that shot. Not everybody had that experience, so. Anyway, thank you, Shane. Then that brings us to you, Kevin.
Tomorrow, we have our student award ceremony, here starting at 10:30 in the gym. Basically, we just do all the letters, bars, pins, different awards at that particular ceremony. Graduation on Saturday, starts at 2, we'll be here in the gym. Basically, there's not gonna be much, if anything, at all different than what past graduations look like on that end there. Shane kind of touched on it already, 17th and 18th next week are the last days. We'll have semester tests up here on those 2 days with the 2:15 dismissal. Driver's education, we had our instructor that we've had for the last, well, since I've been here, decide not to come back next year. So we were advertising for a driver's ed instructor. We were unable to find one. I did get a couple calls from Nathan Epp over at the academy. And they had a couple kids that were still interested in doing it. They found somebody originally was just going to do it for the couple kids that they had. I guess he got a hold of me earlier this week and said, must have been the end of last week, said she was willing to take on more, like up to 20, so driver's ed is just gonna be over at Freeman Academy this year. So I think Seth posted all that stuff on the website. I think basically they're gonna run it in a similar manner to what we have done over here before. And I'm gonna pull up an email I had, just kind of give you an update on some of the open positions that we still have. As far as teaching positions are concerned, or I should say certified positions are concerned, we're still advertising for a middle school, high school science teacher. As of Friday afternoon, I had 0 apps for that job. I did get one late on Friday night. We interviewed that person this afternoon, so we can talk a little bit about that later on. We've been advertising for a middle school, high school special education teacher for at least a month now. I had one applicant at one point in time. I emailed them back the next day, and the response I got was they had already accepted another position, so we're kind of coming up with not a lot on that end.
We have one turns down.
Oh, that's right, we interviewed somebody for the third grade job and offered them the special ed job, and they said no.
On that one, have we talked to Rebecca to see if she's interested in covering that again? Doing
Yeah,
some
I mean,
sort
that
of
is a
same-
conversation we've had, and she's aware that it might end up going that direction.
Saying she's, yeah,
We're still advertising for a counselor. We actually interviewed one last Monday, and made a tentative offer there, and it's kind of been an interesting process, so we'll get a little bit more on that later too. But, you know, aside from that, just not a lot of apps. A lot of open counseling positions out in the state, and just not enough people to fill them. We were advertising for a elementary reading math interventionist with some elementary computer stuff attached to it. I have had one applicant for that position that has some coaching experience. We're going to interview them tomorrow afternoon. Made a tentative offer of employment for a middle school, high school social studies position. For that position, we received 9 apps. One of those actually withdrew after the position, towards the end of when that position was being advertised. So we had 8. Of the 8, there was one that actually had experience. The rest of them were all first-year teachers, just getting done some teaching. And for the third grade position, we had 10 apps for that one. Kind of been getting some random applications in for some of the non-certified coaching positions. So we'll kind of see how that goes. So we're still looking for the following, or still advertising for this following coaching positions. Assistant football coach, an assistant boys basketball coach, a head girls basketball coach, an assistant track coach. Actually, we need 3 assistant track coaches. Junior high volleyball coach, and then a head cheer coach for boys basketball and or football. So all those have been posted on Associated School Boards for the last, it's been over a month now, as far as coaching positions go. Other than the ones that just came open with the resignations that have been on here. All of them have been posted on the website. We're basically just operating under a open until filled format, so as we get apps in and we screen them and we interview people, if we find somebody that we think would do a decent job with it, we just make a offer of employment. I think the actual official close date we put down on that was May 31st, but that's getting pretty late in the game. We're trying to get some of those positions figured out. So, like you had mentioned, Doug, we could certainly put some of those in the local newspaper as well, if we have to, I guess.
I'd take your advertising.
I'm sure you would.
Well, that's fine, because if we do this, we take your advertising.
Maybe we can look at it.
So then there's a couple decisions that have to be made on a couple non-certified coaching positions tonight, but that'll be a discussion later on. So, that is what I have right now.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Questions for Kevin? Sorry. All right, then we're gonna go to business items, and Daktronics has already talked to us. Then we have South Dakota High School Athletic Association ballots.
So we have, I believe there's 3 ballots. I sent all this to you guys in an email the other day, last week. We have to vote for a West River at-large spot on the Activity Association board. You have to vote for a Division III representative, which there's only one person for that job, so that one's pretty simple. And then, I believe there is Division IV representative for athletic director. And then there is an amendment to basically change so when they do classifications right now, they don't do that count until the first Friday in December. So when they do, your student enrollment count for your state aid, it's the last Friday in September. But they wait until the first Friday in December to do your enrollment count for classifications for activities. They wanna basically put those together and have them on the same day. So they wanna do both of them on the last Friday in September. And because that's written in their constitution and bylaws, they need a vote. Then it has to receive 60% of the vote in order to change it to that. So, I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at all that stuff. This one's pretty self-explanatory because there's only one on there. That's the gentleman from Elk Point, who's the superintendent down there. So, as far as West River at large and Miss Sage, I don't know if you know who any of these people are.
Do you have a recommendation?
Harding County? Is that what you were thinking on the first one? Because that's what I was thinking too. Kelly Messmer from Harding County. That's kind of what I was thinking too. So. There's a gentleman from Crazy Horse, Lyman, and Sturgis on there as well.
So you just need to let approve that we just.
Basically, we just need to consensus to approve where we do, and then I just need you to sign off on it, how we discuss it.
Is everybody okay with taking Mrs. Sage's
Yes.
Yes.
recommendation? Okay, we will just do that.
Mrs. Sage, how about the Division 4 rep? Kyle Courtney, rep City Christian, Eric Denning, Mount Vernon, Jeff.
Bauer on there?
No, Jeff Costers from Frederick, Brent Maresca from TS Bay Topa, and John Meyer from Waverly South Shore. I only know Denning and Costers.
I would say that.
He's up
Sure.
in Mount Vernon.
I've heard the name
I know it.
before. He was from Corsica, right?
No, Tuesday.
Originally from Corsica?
No.
Ron Denny?
Oh, yeah.
Stickney.
We're sticking, yeah.
Wasn't there some Dennings from Corsica? Right.
Yeah, there's.
Manning.
Manning, oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Manning.
Okay.
And then that amendment, I don't know if you're opposed at all to moving that to the, if they move it to the last Friday in September instead of the first Friday in December for counting ADMs. I guess they're just trying to kill two birds with one stone, right? I guess it depends on where you want your number to go. Typically, it's a little bit, probably goes up a little bit based on recent trends. I would say we get more kids after,
After we don't get any money.
after we don't actually really find our aid for them anymore, so.
Yeah, then that's.
Let's wait till September, everybody okay with that? Okay. All right, and that's on to Debbie and budget time over there.
All right, discussion with the preliminary budget, Debbie.
Well, I put in the wages for the certified, non-certified, that's like 85–90% of the budget. But then, on the grant that we're getting for the ESSERS 2, we discussed using part of it for Katie's salary and Austin, the math teacher. And then I try to put as much of the rest of it into capital so that we could free up our capital money for the wrestling, if that's what you decided to do.
So that was one of those things that we had talked about a little bit in a phone conversation. So one of the questions that's come up at some of the superintendent meetings and different things is, can you take that ESSER money that you're gonna get and use it for building projects? The long answer is you could use it for parts of that, as far as like what they're looking at is like air systems and different things like that would qualify, but the other aspects of the building part would not. So, what we kind of started doing, like Debbie said, is stuff that we typically purchase out of capital. There's no restriction saying that we can't move that or at least slide that temporarily into some of the federal money. So, a lot of the stuff we typically buy out of capital outlay, we're just gonna use the ESSER money to pay for that, which in turn frees up extra money in capital in the event that you did want to actually do a building project. So Are you directly having that extra money pay for your building project? No, but indirectly, basically you're freeing up money to be able to do that. So that's kind of the gist of what.
Kevin said you're gonna keep a list of what you kind of done, money wise, so like, how you did that, just for.
Well, you have to, that federal grant is
Okay.
very, first you have to put in a budget into grants management system. And then you have to track all the assets, they have to have tag numbers, and they audit you. It's pretty strict.
Anything else we need to know as far as the budget goes?
And right now, it's still pretty general. It'll get, as we get to July, when you do your actual legitimate budget hearing and all that stuff, you'll have more specifics. And you'll still have time to make adjustments before it's actually due in September.
Especially the capital part. And come up with what projects we're gonna do, and we might have to use fund balance to, if we're gonna go with the wrestling thing, but we have it.
Any questions for Deb then?
I have one quick, if I may. Will you finalize the budget in September
Yes,
as opposed to July?
yes.
Okay.
That's the way we've done it for the last
Yeah,
4 or
that's
5
how,
years.
that's how it recalls well. Thank you.
All right. Then we need a motion to acknowledge the presentation of the 21-22 preliminary budget.
So,
Motion by Mark, second by Corey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we had our Valley Electric thing, so that brings us to our wrestling edition proposal.
So, I sent you an email with that, I got the paperwork back from Co-op Architecture. Sorry I got it to you a little late, he actually thought he sent it on Thursday, but he did not. So, basically what I sent you has the diagram of what, they thought was the best setup, and also, I had Mr. Seiler, and Mrs. Sage kind of look over all that stuff when they came the last time around. So, I can pass this around if you didn't actually look at it before you got here. One copy. The main thing there is they just talk about, as far as their fees, they take care of all the work, and all the bids, and all that stuff that goes along with it. They charge 7% of whatever the bid price is. So it's basically a similar contract to when we worked with them when we did the roof, a couple of years ago. So. Like Debbie was saying, we've been talking about this for kind of a couple months, here and there. The money is there to do it, if you wanna do it, I guess it's just a matter of whether you actually wanna do it or not. So, I think you're sitting on pretty close to what, 2 million in capital outlay right now, give or take. Now, that's the total, total fund balance there. So, he was estimating, best guess, somewhere around probably $500,000, but that could go either way, depending on where the bids would actually come in. He said, as far as the way things are set up right now, best bet would be to maybe go to bid in August, after everybody kind of gets done with some of their summer stuff. He said they've had success going with that timeline in the past. And then you'd be looking at trying to get your stuff going, and maybe, like we had talked about, potentially maybe being able to get in there next year, mid to probably end of the wrestling season.
Christmas time, I thought.
Somewhere in there, so. That's just what their ballparking timeline was.
7% is a lot high.
I don't think that's real high in
It's about
comparison.
a point higher than the going rate.
Is it?
6% is pretty standard. So.
Chris,
Unless,
did you see, go ahead.
extended services within that contract.
Did it seem a little undersized to you, Chris,
No, because I think if I'm reading, it's tough for me to see, the numbers are small in there, but I can get my 42-foot mat, and then there's enough for another 4 sections, which would be another 24 feet. So I think I was figured at 42 by 66. No. Yeah, 42 by 66 was,
Cause when I talked to him last time, I said he wanted to make sure that you got to 66 for sure.
yep. And, with that, I mean, I'll always go bigger. I mean, that's,
Well, I just, I don't understand why they wouldn't have matched up with the north wall out here. Seems like it's set in, what, 12 feet? It doesn't match going out, you go in and then over. Why wouldn't you just have it flush and have that additional, I don't know, it just seems
My guess-
aesthetically unpleasing and kind of a waste of space.
My guess is this though, it has to do with those doors right there.
I'm seeing up here.
No, I know, my guess is it has to do with these doors right here that are currently in the gym.
Yeah, but you just be lengthening out this portion.
I know, we have,
This would be the same, this would be the.
You're saying keep
Right,
the
but
south,
you're talking about
south
having
end the same,
12
but
feet.
moving it north.
the whole building?
Yeah, I'm just saying, not moving it, I'm saying adding onto it. I think we could
Out
figure
of
that out.
curiosity, what's 12 feet, an additional 12 feet cost?
$250 a square foot.
Is that 7%, is that something we can negotiate with co-op architecture?
I mean, I suppose you could probably try. I honestly don't know.
Different company to it. It wouldn't be as high.
I think we're moving in the right direction with it. I wanna do it. Is this my ideal architectural design? No, but I'm not the one that is putting it together, so. And I think
And
the,
I think what you're saying is on the north side, why is it not level with the,
correct.
with the building on the north side, right?
Yep.
Right.
Does it have to do with those lights that are already there?
I think that's probably what they, I mean, they can move the lights. I mean, I don't know what their reasoning was behind it, but,
I know you can't go, well, I shouldn't say can. They said probably stay away from going any further to the south because that's where all the drainage comes off.
Right,
the
sure.
building over there.
We're talking to the north.
No, I know what you're talking about, I'm just saying, like, as far as going the other way.
We just
and
have,
what's the distance there from the wall, from the,
I think part of,
their
the other
proposed,
part of the
you know,
reason they
where the room ends to where the end of the building is, how many feet is that?
I can't see on my email. If I
It's,
zoom in that close, it's just a blur.
Like, well, okay, from the,
I'm gonna guess it's roughly 10
I'd
feet.
say I'd say at least 10 feet.
You're just gonna have a strip of grass. You might as well just kick out the building all the way.
The only other thing I could think of is you run into the same problem that you have with like this front walkway, why you have a snow melt system there in the winter, is that sidewalk won't get any sun. Now, I don't know if even being, 12 feet back from that is enough to be able to get your sun there or not.
I don't think so.
I would imagine not.
But
And I don't know if we need
If
to
it's-
talk about that too, cause the issue of getting into the elementary gym has always been either you have to come through here, then go through the narrow hallways back to the gym, or you go through the double doors there and everybody's got their shoes all wet, and then we try to put as many rugs there as possible. Does a person even talk about some type of a covering or an entrance to make that all work better?
You know, if it's 12 feet, I mean, my goal is to do increments of 6 feet, because that's what mats are, or increments of 6 feet, so that way we're not cutting mats or doing that. So I mean, if it's a 12 foot, I mean, that'd be great. I mean, that's easy fix. There are 2 more sections of mat. And then you're looking at, would be a section short of 2 full mats, which is plenty of room for what we would need. And I mean, I don't think it's gonna add a ton more money, probably adding 12 more feet on. I said $250 a square foot, so
If we're gonna do a big project like that anyway, we might as well do it right in the
it's
first
a drop
place.
in the bucket.
Try to save a few.
Yeah, I'd wanna look at that and see why they didn't wanna go all the way to that sidewalk. See what that extra cost is gonna be and see if they wanna decrease their amount of commission that they wanna get.
And I think it's a great idea, my original, just build a wrestling room, but I think it's great that we're using it more as, as a, officials room and, having a more multi-use than just a wrestling room. So I think that's great having that extra places so the coaches' rooms aren't gonna have to be used by the officials when they're here, and stuff like that, and they got their own separate facility.
So I guess Kevin, I would ask, can we get an edited blueprint, see if we can bump that out all the way to the sidewalk A, and then shoot them an offer at 6% as opposed to 7%?
I can do that.
How many do you have in the co-op, Chris?
There's 5 schools.
Do you know, is there, I'd hate for us to be looked at as like, you know, we're the one flipping the bill for the whole program and the other ones don't have to have any share of this. I think there's been some concern about that. So I don't know, is there, have you ever seen anything where people pay like a participation fee to help
Each school
a little
pays,
bit?
each school pays their percentage of their fees every year. So costs are split up between all the schools in the co-op every year. So each school pays for their equal share of, expenses for everything, including travel, and Debbie splits all that stuff up every year, so.
Have you ever seen anything to help maybe recoup our cost a little bit for a wrestling room, that they help take participation some way? Or is that out of the box?
I don't know, I mean, I think ask them to charge other schools to come over here. I mean, they're already paying the extra expense to travel over here every day.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be like, you know, Canastota having us pay for part of the water bill to water the football field up there. It would be kind of the same type of deal, I would think. I mean, we're putting equity into our building, and it's, I mean, yeah, it's 5 schools and we're the ones paying for it, but, yeah, I don't see how you can ask another school to say, can you pay part of this bill? You know, no other school here even has a wrestling match, so even even having rotating practice isn't even an option. I mean, we're the most centrally located school, so if we have the room here, I mean, we have the mats, we have everything here, we won't be traveling all over, you know, from place to place for practice. We have our own place to practice in a central location. So, that's what I think.
Anybody else got any questions?
I guess before we have Kevin counteroffer, are we all still in agreement that we want to move forward with this? Or at least 3 out of the 5 of us?
I think so too. Just out of curiosity, I'll ask, are you two, since this could get drug out far enough that you could make a vote, you're okay with that also?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, then I think, yes, if we can go ahead and try and do that, that would be great. All right, then I think that brings us to the end of our agenda, although I think Mr. Walters, I kinda skipped him over. Everybody else I let go first. And I made Michael sit here for an hour and 20 minutes extra, but did you?
I'd just like to know, you know, where we're at with the Fall View ball fields. I don't know, I know the city approached, I don't know what kind of history the rest of the school board has and so forth with that. If you want to enlighten them, where we've kind of gone.
So we've kind of talked about it, and I think, now you have to help me out here, Kevin, I don't remember exactly. You went and looked at, or you talked to?
So I spoke with Rod Fortin at the Department of Legislative Audit, and then I talked with our attorney, because I just wanted to, you know, basically when you start getting into using funds that are more or less earmarked for educational purposes to fund something that is not necessarily an educational, just wanted to make sure that we weren't, you know, running into issues with any laws or anything that said you couldn't actually do that. Now, both the suggestion from the attorney and from legislative audit was, if you really want to do anything that's good for the community, donate the land, have some type of agreement that says the school can use it when needed, but then basically just kind of go from there. Now, with that said, they didn't say that you couldn't contribute money to it, they just said that's more a matter of perspective in terms of what's the public perception going to be if you're, you know, using funds that are set aside for school things to fund something that is not really a school thing. So that
is kind of the decision that you would have to make on that end, as far as where you wanna go with that, and if you're okay with using money for that purpose.
Cause correct me if I'm wrong, it was ish ballpark, the city was gonna have, what, $150,000?
We,
Ish.
we had a gentleman come in that does this. And drew up maps, which I think we've all seen.
Yep.
Gave us a guesstimation of price and so forth. Came up with around $350,000. Thought process was, city's gonna throw $150 in, kind of hoping the school would do the same. There would be a booster club and bring, and then we'll see how fancy it gets made and so forth. The city has already moved with a resolution. We have their tag, $150,000 towards that project. That's on the books. So, you know, we're kind of waiting, it's, yeah. You gentlemen need to decide how you wanna handle that. I'm not gonna sit here, you know, you don't come to my table and tell me, and I'm not gonna come to your table and tell you. I have thoughts on it, but, you know, I can only see it with the Booster Club, and, that would always be under the auspices of the school board. The city's contribution continually would be a summer rec board, which is already in place. And the funding would be there, the Booster Club would be, you know, they would have to, fund it, you know, fundraising and so forth. How I would see it, and I'm not, the only way I can see this happening is you, as a school board, would consent to a school, booster club, committee, club, whatever. I would put 2 school board members on it, designate 2 school board members, and somebody from the city. Give them a 1-year tenure, because, and then have those, I'm just throwing my thoughts out here. The 6 booster club members and the 2 school board members and a city member, they're gonna get together. Because there's a lot, there's funding to see what they can do and so forth, there's planning and so forth, but it's always under the auspices, that has to be under the auspices of the, school board. It's on your land. You're gonna, I can only imagine you would want control, you know, perpetuity. So that's how I would see it getting going, because there'd have to be, somebody would have to be hired, how much, you know, there's groundwork that needs to be moved, there's bids and so forth. And I would give these people a 1-year tenure and then drop that. And then start over with it, you know, maybe some of that booster club would wanna stay on after this thing is taken off to do that, and I'm sure there's other things that a booster club could do for the Freeman High School. Run tournaments and so forth, but the control always has to be with the school board.
The maintenance bill needs to stay with the school board.
Well, you know, the city has gotten a lot of gifts too, they're not cheap.
The city also has a lot of equipment that could handle that kind of thing a lot better than we
I would
could.
keep hence, I would keep, you know, we do have skin in the game, first of all, and yes, you know, I'm not trying to take anything away from you people, but yes, you said something that brought me wise to keep, on that committee, probably have as a designate. We try to run our golf course that, we're trying to run our golf course that way, our library and so forth. So it runs itself, so there's no headache here, but it always has to,
This is where the buck stops.
It always has to come through here.
Sure.
But it needs to, if you know, it needs to, the problem with all these things is get it going. And I'm offering information that I probably shouldn't offer, and that's how to do it. I don't see any other way. We've gone to District 3, we've gone to the city attorney, our city attorney before and so forth, to make sure like he did, to make sure that this can be done. And maybe somebody's got a better idea, but to get this thing going, I think we need, your approval that a booster club could be formed. Freeman High School Booster Club, or whatever you want to call it. I threw out 6, I don't know why. 6 people, and I would designate 2 people here from the school board, and I think the city's gonna want, as long, for 1 year at least, we're gonna want, somebody listening and so forth to report back what's going on. And you're gonna want that too. They would then organize and get going. There's a lot to do. They would have to come here. They would report in. They're gonna meet, find out what needs to be done. There's gonna be fundraising. You're gonna have to find somebody to move some dirt. You gotta get some prices, bid out some stuff and so forth. If you wanna move dirt this year, it's not too late, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Because when you plant grass, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but you plant grass, you're not gonna play on it in the spring. It has to fill in, so. Otherwise, you're looking at 2023, pretty soon. And I'd like to see it going. Was one of the things that I heard about before I threw my hand in there, was 12 youth. And there, the gentleman had a plan for 2, the gentleman had a plan for 3. I had the opportunity to talk to Cody, and I care less. If I were in your shoes, I'd want 2, because you said maintenance, and 3 would be nice, but whatever, whatever. It's not for the city really to decide. I'm just here to promote, I guess, for lack of a better word. What your thoughts are?
I'm a little fuzzy on the booster club side of things, because other places I've been with booster clubs, that's not under the purview of the board. They're their own separate entity that, has their own board, has their own bylaws, their own constitution, and all that stuff, and then they dictate how they're gonna spend their money. I suppose you could set it up so that the board has to approve that happening. I don't know that you would want that. I know there's people that would be interested in forming a booster club. I know Christy and I have had people that have approached us and said, we'd be interested in doing that. I just don't know the pros and cons to whether or not the board has official oversight on that or not. Like I said, the ones I'm aware of, they do not. I'm not saying that it couldn't work that way, I don't know. Honestly, if you had a group like that was not under the purview of the board, it would probably work better to have them be the ones that's, trying to get all the work started and all that stuff, because I don't know that that's a headache that you really necessarily want either, as far as architects and contractors and all that stuff, and you being the one that's actually pulling the weight on all that. But, again, I don't think anybody here would argue that they don't think it's a good idea for the community to have the fields there. You just have to be a little bit careful on your end about how you go about making that happen.
As far as the money, up to $150,000 to start it, is that?
Probably have to come out of fund balance.
Yeah, it has to come out of general fund too, that, if you're essentially you can gift them the money and say you're gonna give them $150,000 for, whatever, wanna do, but it would have to be general fund money then, under that.
So if we started a booster club, if there was a booster club started, the city would then be able to give their $150,000 to the booster club?
Yeah.
And then we would be able to give our $150,000.
So some of the state laws specifically say that you can donate money to a nonprofit organization type of deal, which probably makes things a little bit better on your end as far as, following the letter of the law. Again, you're still gonna have, I'm sure at some point, questions on, excuse me, whether that's an appropriate use of that money or not, but, as far as the legality of it, that would probably be the best way to do it. Just have another, group that's
essentially a nonprofit organization, that's the one that's kind of doing all that stuff. But, the issue you're gonna run into with that is the timing. I mean, it's gonna take some time for them to get that type of group up and running, to the point where they would be able to facilitate some of this.
Well, I think that's obviously the first step is we have to get a booster club going.
I have an individual who's pretty serious about starting that. I'm not gonna say that person's name in this meeting, but there is somebody very ready to take the lead on that.
So like, time frame as far as starting it, like applying and everything, like, is that a long process? Like,
Well, I think if you're gonna go tax or nonprofit, you just have to, it's pretty simple to do your 501c3 stuff.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's a matter of,
State website.
yeah, go to the state website, apply, and you get your number, and you have to have bylaws
Yeah.
and, all that stuff. 'Cause I've done with the AAU for South Dakota, I had to go through all that to make our Coach Association 501c3, and, yeah, you have to have bylaws and all that other stuff, but
so that's not a big,
It's a pretty
it's not a
simple-
big hoop to jump through or anything.
it's pretty simple.
So then, I think last time we talked about this, it seemed like I thought we kind of had a board that was kind of in favor of possibly doing that $150,000. Do we still sit in that same spot, or?
So the land donation thing, I guess we need to clarify that as well. Would that be donated to the city? Would that still be under our purview? We're just letting, use it? How does that work?
Well, there's a couple different ways you can go about doing that. One would be to just gift the land to another group.
Right.
And then, like I said, have some type of agreement that says if the school wants to use it, the school can do it. And, basically just, it's whoever you give the land to, it's their responsibility to maintain and do all that stuff. The only issue you run into with that is, it is somebody else's responsibility to maintain, but it's still right next door to your property, so, you have to deal with, if they're done playing in July or August, and then they decide that they're not going to maintain it, what's it gonna look like the other 6-7 months out of the year where it's not in use?
Well, then we just do a Kevin Coons and build a large privacy fence.
Could do that.
So then, would that
Heard I can
mean,
help with unsightly items that happen to be, within view.
so then, if you gifted the land to a booster club then, so you give, that's probably who you have to gift it to.
Yes.
They would have to hire summer help then, and they would have to,
Yep.
they'd have to pay them
Yep.
to maintain it, to mow it, put lines down, and all that other stuff.
Yes.
If you would gift it to the booster club, and 3 years from now, Freeman High School decides to have a girls softball team, are you gonna then rent it from them?
Well, that would be part of the agreement that you would have set up ahead of time. If we'll gift you the land, but then we have some type of agreement that says we're allowed to use it, And that's more probably an attorney thing to have them write that up for you, some type of purchase/use agreement or whatever it would happen to be.
Well, and I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but if we're giving the land and we're currently mowing it anyway, so that's already an expense, we could mow everything and they could just maintain the field. We could make some sort of,
Can you discuss that with your custodians as well?
well, they mow it already, don't they?
It's a little more complicated when you start throwing out fences and all sorts of stuff like that, as far as time. I'm just saying, that is gonna be one of the concerns on their end, as far as, adding something extra to what they have to do. It's pretty easy to mow an empty lot right now, you start throwing some other stuff in there.
Plus, I would think, you're gonna probably put a sprinkler system in there, so you're gonna be mowing it that much more.
Twice a week.
Well, but you'd only have that on the inside of the field, not
What's that?
the sprinkler system.
Inside?
Yeah, like in the field, not,
Yeah.
I mean, if we maintain the outside, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's.
The city would maintain the outside, or excuse me, the school would maintain the outside like you are already. The booster club or
Well, when did we go?
Or the city of Freeman?
the summer rec board would take care of it.
Best thing that happens if you put a carpet infield, don't have to maintain lines, just like they have down in.
I don't know that.
You guys are making a lot of brownies, I think, Lori.
I'm just saying, you it's the initial cost that's gonna kick you, it's the length of
I
time.
guess what I'm saying, I'm gonna encourage you guys, I can think of about 20 more problems if you want to think about them, that I've thought of already. There's a lot of problems you're gonna have.
Yeah.
All I'm saying, if you don't move off center, it ain't happening.
Well, and I agree that it has to happen. I mean, we're having trouble filling basketball teams, football teams, every sport you can think of, with the exception of baseball and softball. My wife's coaching 10U, she's got 24 girls on one team. You know, we all complain about not getting kids to participate in sports and do this and that, get outside. This is the one thing that everybody's interested in for the most part, and everybody can participate in, you know, at least up until a certain age group. I'm not necessarily as worried about the details as just committing to it, getting the ball rolling, and then figuring it out as we go. I mean, as long as we get the ball rolling, we can figure it all out on the fly as far as the 20 other smaller problems that are gonna need to be dealt with. We're just gonna have to deal with them as they come. The legality of it, kind of the same thing. Let's figure it out, let's do it. The land is there, it's not being used. Are a few people gonna be upset they have to mow a little more? Sure. Are we gonna have to donate a little bit of money to get this started? Yes, but I think the rest of it can all come down the road as far as putting up lights, putting up concession stands, things like that. I just say we need to do it. I mean, it is by far the most popular activity in Freeman, South Dakota. We'd be crazy not to.
And the state's probably gonna sanction girls softball, I mean, that's pretty much,
There's a very big push.
yeah, it's
for
pretty
that.
much a done deal, I think.
It will be sanctioned, I'm sure, in South Dakota.
We're the last state to not sanction softball, so I think the biggest debate is when to have it in the spring or the fall, is when they're gonna run the season.
And I mean, yeah, we have the girls to compete. I mean, you go to state tournaments with some of my daughters and we're placing top 3. It's not like we can't play your Yanktons or even your Sioux Falls traveling teams. We're competing and beating those teams. So I mean, we're really selling them short if we don't give them these facilities to keep that on track.
Christie, how far out are they from sanctioning softball?
They, I would say it'll happen in the next couple of years.
Well, I was gonna say, if they sanction it and you wait till they sanction it, then you can get rid of all your other junk and you can just do it yourself, because then you have a pretty legitimate, you know, if you're gonna offer the program, you know, build the field, and then there's less questions about, you know, appropriate use of the money and all that stuff, and then the city can donate you money, you can do all that stuff.
With that being said, instead of being reactive, couldn't we be proactive and get this ready for the oncoming?
And then it'd be ready to go.
And it's ready to go as soon as that becomes a reality. I mean, we don't have to sit on our hands and say, oh, we'll start building after. Why can't we have this facility ready for when that becomes a reality and be proactive about it?
We can probably talk to them at the state and figure out what their anticipated timeline is on that.
I can call Joe up and talk to her. They're looking for schools to commit right now. They're looking for schools that are saying, yes, we will start this. So I'll visit with her a little bit, see what she thinks about timeline.
Jeremy, can you help me out with this too? Are we hosting the boys tournament? What age bracket is that?
That's 13, 14 teeners, I
Yep.
think.
That wouldn't be on this.
14, yeah, that's would be on the big picture.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, I think then as far as tonight, if Chris is gonna talk and see as far as the state is, if everybody's in favor of doing it, we probably need to get the booster club somewhat started so that we can potentially break down and play on it next year if that's the plan.
Did you bring your $150,000 check, Mike?
My back pocket.
All right, sounds good.
It ain't proof yet, it ain't coming out. No, please understand, you know, it's on your property and so forth, but I know from doing these other, getting off center is very, very difficult. It's far more difficult than solving the little problems that are going on, and there's going to
Well,
be a bunch.
like Kevin said, you know, if they're gonna be sanctioning it, let's just say next year. If they're willing to be sanctioning softball, girls softball next year, we have a viable excuse saying, well, they're gonna sanction girls softball next year, we're gonna be proactive and build our fields. And there'd be a lot less worrying about booster clubs and everything else then.
And I do disagree with Kevin that, as far as the legality of it all, I have too, though, and I have not found anything you said. I've talked to District 3 legislative about it, and what you're saying. It's very easily done.
Well, I'm not saying there's anything from a
I'm
legality
just saying,
standpoint.
I have not found anything you said. I found it, people I talked to, I didn't.
Right, I mean, there's
There's
laws
no,
that.
there's no
allow-
reason it can't be done.
No, I'm just saying, I'm not saying.
Things need to be massaged, yeah, probably, where how money's directed and so forth, but it can all be done, so.
Right, no, I'm not saying you can't do it from a legal standpoint, I'm just saying the perception of contributing money to something that's not directly education related is the issue that you have.
It's always an issue. It's always an issue, but it can be done.
With this
Depends if you want it or not.
With this $350,000 price tag, as opposed to us having a larger donor and a smaller donor, that being the city, would you be willing to do it 50-50 and do 175, 175? Or at least bring that to the city council?
No. You know what it's gonna have to do, it's gonna have to, don't take the carrot away from the front of the horse. Yeah. Okay, let's see what the fundraising committee can do.
Okay.
Maybe they'll come up with $100,000. I mean,
Optimistic?
you,
That's a
I'm
great
okay with
idea,
that.
because you already have the check written, so then we can just write ours a little smaller. Right? Is that what you're getting at?
legislate, you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Yes.
I've heard big promises out there.
Sure.
We kicked in ours, you kicked in yours. I'm not gonna do the work, and I don't think you guys want to either. Let's let these people get together and show us what they can do. And we might be pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
We might, you know. I mean,
I'm all in on it,
I don't
so,
know the
yeah.
answer to that.
I don't know where the rest of the board stands. I'm all in on this. I think it's great for the city of Freeman and our school districts to boot, so I don't see any of these problems stopping what should happen.
I agree with Slade, so. Yeah. So I don't know where everybody else stands, if we wanna talk about it. Christie, do you have a recommendation as an athletic director as far as if we have girls softball in 2 years?
I think it's something to look at, we got kids interested and, you know, right, proactive, have it ready to go.
We can get some. Okay, well, then, so I guess we will continue.
Board consensus would be.
Do we have board consensus?
I believe so. I would agree with it.
That's three. Three, okay. Okay, so we have board consensus, so then I think we should, maybe if you're interested in talking to somebody about starting
Speak to the person that you said was very interested,
There you go.
and let's get the ball rolling on that.
Will do.
School board's willing to donate the land and a considerable chunk of the financial needs,
Okay.
all right?
Along with the city, of course.
along with the city.
All right. Then I believe that brings us to the end of everything that we need to talk about tonight. Michael's gotta get home and to bed. All right, then I need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of SDCL 1-25-2, parentheses 1. Motion by Corey, second by Slade. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will be in executive session at 8:45, and are we heading?
Debbie's gonna stick around so we can talk about the kitchen staff, and Christie's gonna stick around so we can talk about the kitchen staff.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Action. Just offer and approve some contracts afterwards, actually, in,
Okay.
afterwards.
Is the YouTube channel feed gonna kick back on?
I don't think it will, because I don't know that anybody here is smart enough to be able to figure that out.
Okay.
You want to call when we're done?
Please, Tyler, give me a call.
I can give you a call.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yep. All right.
I'm out of coffee. We gotta shut it
Hey
down.
Cliffy.
Yeah.
bring us up.
Mark's yawning. I bet 10 to 15